Today, I have the honor of sitting down with Carla Harris, Managing Director at Morgan Stanley. She is also an award-winning gospel singer, has published 2 and is launching her 3rd book in September. And we're going to talk about not only Carla's pearls, but what will make us more successful in our career. Welcome, Carla.
Oh, well, thank you very much. I'm happy to be here.
You have shattered and stepped all over that glass of the glass ceiling on Wall Street. Tell us a little bit about how you navigated your career where you've just reached the top and keep going.
Well, I'll tell you, first of all, prayer had a lot to do with it, as I like to say, no ifs, ands, buts about it. But more importantly, not recognizing limitations. You know, people used to say the glass ceiling all the time, and I just refused to believe there was really something, you know, that was there. And I'll tell you, I've also been very perceptive in my career. I paid attention. So when things didn't work out, I would always step back and say, what did I do that contributed to this situation? Well, before I would say, what did the organization do, or what did that person do? I'd first say, Carla, how did we get here? What did you do? And try to recognize that. Then try to recognize maybe it was something in the culture, maybe it was a specific person, but understand, you know, what happened to get me to that moment. And now if I had to do it all over again, because hindsight is 20/20, what would I do differently? How would I play it differently? And that's how I derived the pearls, saying, oh, that's what I should have done. Okay, well, the next time that thing happens, I'm going to do that to test whether or not I was right. This was what I should have done, and whether or not it works. Because one of the things that I have learned is that when life comes to teach you a lesson, if you don't pass the test, you will repeat the class. So it's coming again. So now, did you learn? Okay, apply that pearl.
What were some of the pivotal moments in your career that inspired you, gave you confidence, whatever that internal motivation that made you just continue to seize the moment?
Sure. There were a number of things that I write about in my first book, Expect to Win, because that's where the pearls came from. So for example, chapter 4, perception is the co-pilot to reality. How people perceive you will directly impact how they deal with you. Well, that pivotal moment came because a very senior managing director who I was working for said, you know, you're smart, you work hard, but I don't think you're tough enough for this business. And that was a big aha, because I always thought of myself as tough. So the fact that he was questioning whether or not I was tough enough was a wake-up call that the real Carla, the authentic Carla, was no longer walking into that environment. Somewhere I had lost my confidence, somewhere I had lost my voice, and it was now creating a competitive disadvantage for me. So I became very intentional around restoring my voice, very intentional about changing that perception of me not being tough enough. So the story I like to tell is I walk tough, talk tough, eat tough, drink tough, because if you want people to think about you in a certain way, you need consistent behavior around those 3 adjectives. So if you're consistently behaving in that way that you want them to think about you, that you're quantitative, that you have attention to detail, you know, that you're really smart, that you're tough, have that behavior in your environment. Another pivotal moment I write about in chapter 6, and that is leverage your voice. You don't ask, you don't get. And that was a year that I didn't get promoted, and I was upset, I was angry, and after 2 weeks of steaming, I went into the boss and said, this is not fair, this is discriminatory, blah, 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 blah. And he said, have a seat. And he said, didn't you know that we are the captain of our own ship? Your colleagues have been coming in and out of my office for the last 6 months, pounding the table, telling me why they ought to get promoted. And I didn't hear it all from you. And we had to make some tough decisions this year, so I took the path of least resistance. As angry as I was, all my anger dissipated, because I realized he had given me a valuable pearl by telling me that I needed to exercise my voice and ask for what I wanted, even if I thought I had earned it or that it was due. Don't leave the organization with the question of whether or not you're going to care if you get promoted or if you get paid. So that's just 2 examples, but I had a lot of pivotal moments.
Well, the mPower community knows I do quote you often, if you don't ask, you don't get. And as simple as it sounds, we don't do it.
No.
And so it's really a valuable pearl that we use all the time in the community. So thank you for that. What was one of the biggest career risks you've ever taken And would you do it again?
Yes, I would absolutely do it again. And one of the biggest risks that I took in my career was the year that I was going to be up for managing director. A very senior guy in my department asked me to take on a different role. Now, you have to understand that I had never said no to the organization up until that point. If they asked me to do anything, I was on it. But in my gut, I knew that if I said yes to take on this new role, that I was going to put my promotion in peril. Because what it would enable the organization to do at the end of that year is to say, she's doing a good job, but she needs one more year of seasoning in that new role. Whereas there was nothing else that I could show the organization about my readiness or my worthiness in the role that I was in. I was really good at that, and there was no debate. So I knew that I was going to open up a measure of risk if I took on this newly created position. That's the other thing. It was a new role that had never existed before. And oftentimes when we take those kinds of roles, unless we are very clear and definitive when somebody is offering you that role, you must be clear and definitive about the report card. Because if it's never happened before, they don't know how to evaluate it. And in many cases, they don't know how to value it. So you need to get all of that clear up front. And I didn't have that part that I just told you, I didn't have that formed in my mind at that point, but I knew in here that I was opening up a measure of risk that I was not willing to take, given that that was a big promotion year. But it was a risk. It was a risk because if I said no to him, he might not support me in the promotion process anyway, right? Because he was the guy that I was counting on carrying my paper into that room. So it was a risk, but the risk worked out.
And you trusted your gut.
Yes, ma'am.
And you weighed it, but you stuck with your gut.
Yes, ma'am.
One of the things, when I first heard you speak, and you give us so much to think about, and for women, so much to consider, one of the things that really resonated with me was when you talk about bringing all your Carlas.
Yes.
And I think that was counterintuitive because when I would enter a room, I would kind of read the room and bring one of my Marcias. But I don't do that anymore. So can you talk a little bit about what it's like to bring all your Carlas?
Absolutely, because that's your competitive edge. Nobody can be Carla, nobody can be Marcia the way you can or the way that I can, respectively, right? And so when you start leaving a part of you, it's easy for you to just sort of meld in with whatever else and whoever else is in the room. But bringing all of you is what gives you that edge. It's the thing that allows you to stand out. It's the thing that makes you memorable. And it gives you full flexibility to pronounce that part of you that's going to be most impactful in that room. There have been many rooms, Marcia, that I've gone into where it's been Carla Harris, the investment banker. It's been Carla Harris, the Harvard student. It's been Carla Harris, the singer. Carla Harris, the speaker. Carla Harris, the mother. Carla Harris, the golfer. Carla Harris, the listener. Carla Harris, the friend. I bring all of those because I don't know which Carla will be the one that's going to connect with my audience in the most impactful way. There are sometimes I get on the stage and I feel the energy. We've already decided in a prep call what we're going to talk about, but I feel the energy in the room that says, maybe I should bring in that pearl, or maybe I should go quickly on that pearl, or you know, there have been times when I've said, I'm not going to bring that pearl up at all because what they really need is this, and I'll take my shot with the organizers on the way out because I can feel the room and I trust that.
And it's amazing advice because, as you said, nobody can do Carla like Carla. And so I just think there is so much we can learn from you. When is your book coming out? Next one?
Yes, September 13th, Lead to Win.
Lead to Win. So everyone, pick up Lead to Win and Carla. Thank you so much for spending some time with us.
Thank you, Marcia, and thanks, mPower.